Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this second in a series, talking with Freddie Feltham from the What's Left channel about the state of communication in politics. Now, for this part, we moved on to how the left in general are failing to get to grips with the reality of social media being increasingly used as a news source. Basically, why are the left failing to get through on social media? And no, it's not just money, that is just the lazy excuse. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified.
It's also true, and this is a problem that I think the country has more broadly, is that there are industries which have been very important for a really long time. And I'm talking about TV here. TV is a classic one. Classic modes of communication which have been on a pedestal for at least, the better part of a century and are now waning in their influence. There are people involved in those industries who have an outsized influence over what gets money, what gets attention, and what doesn't. And we've got to be nimble enough internally to say, now's your time. You're done here. We're gonna focus elsewhere. And one of the things that really came out of the Kamala campaign in the US in particular was, I think, in the wash up, we did not take digital seriously. Donald Trump was on every single broadcast in the United States. They couldn't. And this is also, again, a difference in style of communication, mode of communicator, than what the candidate that we fielded, that the Dems fielded at the last election, right? So we need people who have enough latitude in communication terms to be able to handle themselves even in a hostile atmosphere, right? Even with somebody who is adversarial.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're very good at that. And that's not just at our politicians, that's at the left more broadly.
Yeah.
There are not enough left-wing commentators, in my view, who are willing to go and have a row and a debate on a right-wing podcast. That's a problem. Because what the rest of the public who haven't made their mind up think of that is you're shirking a fight.
Yeah.
And also they're not hearing your opinion. So these people then have a monopoly on what the way of understanding that argument is. Now, I haven't done loads of right-wing podcasts. I haven't done any yet.
I haven't
But
done any
that's
ones,
why
that's me. Yeah.
but I'm down. Like, I'm ready to do it. Like, let's go and talk. Let's go and have a conversation. Because also, and this is another point that I think the left needs to be cognizant of, everyone has blind spots.
Yeah.
There is a perspective that the right might be pushing, which has a kernel of truth in it. And there's stuff, for instance, I would argue here on immigration, for instance, that we really need to start thinking about. That's not to legitimize some of the horrible behavior that has happened because of racists being emboldened, etc., which is an often thing you hear on the left, like, don't give over to the framing of it. But if we live in this echo chamber where we only exist with our framing and fewer people are buying into that, then who are we serving except ourselves? You have to have a little bit more, self knowledge to accept that, like, you're not going to know everything inside out. And if you do know a bit more, then there's your chance to correct that person.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about that as well in terms of the echo chambers, because I have another little problem. So there's the actual groups, the famous groups, like Greenpeace and the Labour Party, stuff like that. And I just think, and you explained some of the difficulties that they have, but the fact of the matter is that audience is there and they're not utilising it. So whatever their difficulties they perceive to be, they are going to have to sort them out. But then you've got the other side of it. So then you've got the people who have the audience. They're on YouTube. They already have an audience to the point where it's full time for them. They're not someone doing it alongside work or anything. So it's full time. They can manage their time as they like. Someone like me or even larger channels. And what I notice is there's no real collaboration between those groups. It's like the populists on the left and the right. What you notice about those is they do work with each other. So I don't know why others don't. Like, I've tried to contact a few groups in America because I see a lot of the problems we have in common. So, would it, like, I've been on a couple of people's shows, much smaller channels than me, and I didn't go on them thinking, oh, I might be able to introduce myself to a different audience. No, it's like, no, I'm not going to get any more views out of this. I'm not going to get any more subscribers out of it. But I would do it anyway because I get to discuss something. And I thought, well, maybe some of these channels in America would like to discuss, because then you get a unique perspective, don't you? You can discuss similar things from a different country that's got a slightly different politics but has some of the same issues. And a couple of them sound interested, but then ghosted me, and then the others just not at all. And it's like, so why isn't it worth like an hour of their time every now and then just to do something like this? Wouldn't if why is it? It's almost like these people are more capitalist than the capitalists. It's like they won't do anything unless it's like, this is going to grow my channel, or this is going to introduce me to a new audience, something. Why don't they just go, this might be a way to actually discuss something, and to cross-pollinate, share ideas from different perspectives. Like, why is that not a valuable thing to do you think?
I think on one side of it, there aren't just as many of us on the kind of centre left. That's where I've kind of positioned myself compared to like the populist left and the populist right. I just think, like, firstly, the network is smaller. Secondly, I would argue there is a bit of, and I don't think it's like necessarily being conceited, but there is a bit of, I've got X amount of resource and I should be investing this. Everything needs to be invested, and that way of thinking. I don't think it's necessarily unique to the people who share some of our worldviews, but it is a way that some people do end up thinking. I think as your attitude's the right one, and it's the same one that I have. Go and talk to people if you have the time to talk to people, because you'll learn something. And like when I still go door knocking and canvassing, right? Like, and I'm not doing that just because I'm doing now political commentary and I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing that because I want to know what people's lives are like. I actually care. Like, it's a bit more than just facilitating a job. And of course, especially when you're going and getting abused at the door, on the doorstep, right? Because people are fuming at the government. It's not exactly an enjoyable experience. So, I think there has to be a greater level of curiosity with the world than necessarily we have. And then you've got to, that kind of makes sense to a certain degree, right? When people talk about an elite, a political elite who feel remote and they don't understand where normal people are at. And it's like, well, you wouldn't understand if you don't leave Westminster.
No,
and you're only speaking to the lobby.
Even others. I do have a bit of an issue myself in that some on the left and some socially progressive keep coming up with what I call the middle class bullshit. And it's like, because there is a danger of being too, what the word is, but too superior, almost avuncular, like, oh, but the reason your life is shit is because of this complex thing. And it's like, yeah, but that's not what they're seeing. So I do think in terms of a lot of commentators as well, there's too much of a focus on the political philosophy. And I'm very much into political philosophy myself, but it's not engaging to ordinary people, because their immediate problem is that they're worried the money runs out before the end of the month.
Yeah.
I worry that a lot of commentators, this is why I call it the middle class bullshit, are focused on the higher things, which are not invalid, but it is a bit detached. And because they haven't really in their life ever, like, I mean, I grew up, like, I wasn't poor when I grew up at all. But I have been poor as an adult. I have had that time where, oh, the internet's gone off, time to pay the bill type thing, because I can't pay all my bills at the same time. And I think maybe a lot of people don't necessarily, if they don't necessarily understand that, then they focus too much on the sort of the philosophy side of it. And they're not starting from where people are in terms of persuading them, so it's not as engaging.
Well, there's two things there, right? One is that it is nice to focus on the philosophy side, because guess what? Like, there's no right answer. Like, you could talk about it forever. You can talk about it in perpetuity. However, there needs to be some joined up thinking. And this is where I would say that the right have been quite effective. Top down on the populist right is a very clear analysis that hangs together, not just with their kind of basic base voter, but with also the people who are like the intelligentsia, who are deciding, what the mission is. From J.D. Vance all the way down, to Farage, there is a belief that, Western societies are decadent, that the world is, out to get you, that you must dominate to win, that the financial sector needs to be deregulated. There are these things that you would describe, I guess, as middle class bullshit. But there's agreement, top down, from the from the people who can write their Yale, thesis on it, to the layperson. There is that continuity. The problem that we've got is that the agendas of the left are so diversified that
Yes.
everyone is competing for oxygen, and this is true. There is not going to be a rival to populism on the left that doesn't fit together. The green concern for the environment, the demographic change that we're living through, the demographic time bomb that we're living through, the economic problem that we've got with debt. You have to match all of these things up together. And instead, what you've got is different bits focused. You've got the Greens focusing just on the environmental bit. You would argue maybe the Labour right are just thinking about the debt problem at the moment. The Lib Dems are only thinking about the internationalism at the moment, the way in which you have all these institutions working in concert globally. The truth is, all three of those things need to come together. And so long as you have some agitators, which we do have, of course we have, who's saying, actually, what we need to do is completely burn down the system, accelerationist, we need to have a revolution. I would caution those people to read a bit of history, right? Revolutions are fucking bloody. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but revolutions are bloody, right? They're really bloody.
And
They're
most
awful.
of the blood is shed by the poor. So.
Yeah, I mean, also just have a little look at. I love that the rest of history has just done so much stuff on the French Revolution over the last 2 years, because what they're trying to do there is help people to understand as a corollary in history, because we're at a similar inflection point, right? A revolution is happening right now. It's just being led by the right. But, the Jacobins were murdering people, right? And everyone had to hang their head in shame afterwards when they were trying to put the republic back together. So these are things this is what my point is, like, there is very much fanciful utopian thinking that has to, of course, be part of it to make people feel inspired. But also there needs to be some sobriety in the analysis that says we need to avoid these really dangerous pitfalls around social breakdown. And this is the thing where you can, again, be quite middle class about it and bullshitty about it. And like, I'm very much of someone who is interested in all of that stuff. And our channel is a place where we're trying to, again, crowd some thinking, not just about theory, broadly about political economies if we're in a revolutionary moment.
So that's discussing some of the issues around the left and socially progressive groups on social media. I am increasingly coming to the conclusion that the left aren't going to sort ourselves out. Third part should be out tomorrow. Again, if you want to see more of Freddie's stuff on his own channel, link in the description below. But let me know what you think in the comments, and for more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.